So now we've made it to number one.
Number one.
Which I'm guessing we can put 2 and 2 together.
Yeah, so my number one is Street Fighter 2, which I think, I don't know, it's a game that my introduction to Street Fighter 2 was through the arcades, and we used to every lunchtime when school sort of near Barking or in Barking, but sort of just outside. And there was a video shop that was it's got to be about a 10-minute walk. At that age, it felt like it was miles away, but it probably isn't. It wasn't that far. But all along the back in the video shop was probably about 5 or 6 arcade machines. So they had all the different ones at the time. And sort of experiencing the side-scrolling beat-em-ups like Final Fight and I think Vigilante and things like that, where you walk along, punch a few people, and then some other bloke comes and punch a few people. Those sort of ones, which were really cool and really sort of fun. But then Street Fighter 2 came out, and it was just like, I don't know, we were just hooked because it brought. What I love about it's a great game in the sense that of competition with each other, and like bit of starting in the arcades and having that person next to you there, and you're playing against them, and because there was a few of us that would go down there and there'd already be people in the arcade, they'd come over and they'd have a look, or someone's already playing, you say, "Oh, can I join in?" And just that whole community of doing it was incredible, and sort of making your lunch money last as far as you could to buy yourself a chip butty for £1 and then spend the rest of it on the arcade machine.
Yeah. It makes me think of like almost like when you go down, like as we are now, a bit older, going down the pub and putting £1 down to play on pool or something like that.
Yeah,
if you're playing a game of pool.
Yeah.
I'll play the winner, and almost like doing that, because I never probably experienced it the same way, because I think arcades for me when I was younger would have been like going down to a beach side where you've got all the and things like that, and you'd play them there. It wasn't necessarily on my doorstep.
Yeah, and it was, and that was at the time the only way you could play Street Fighter 2, and just the characters that. There's such a broad mix of characters. Each character has its own strengths and weaknesses and its special moves, which are all very, will either appeal to you or not. Everyone tended to gravitate towards a particular character, and that was yours guy, Ryu, who I still just play with now.
Yeah.
But you got to learn. So the reason I love it more than the other ones is you got to learn. There's quite a tactical side to it, and even now playing with the boys, I've got a machine, playing with them, and they're playing against a particular character, and they are always saying, right, well, that character, she's really vulnerable to sort of, if she jumps at you, don't jump at her because she'll have you every time. But if you punch up, she's really vulnerable, things like that. And it's all in there still, like from all that time sort of playing it, I sort of analyse the game almost. And that's what part of it is. It's that you're playing and you're anticipating what that other person is doing. And there's quite a purist sort of side to it. Whereas the newer ones, when Mortal Kombat came out, it's like, it's really flashy. Yeah, and there was that initial excitement. Wow, that's photorealistic. Look at how cool that is. You can pull his head off. But then, it's just, it just didn't feel the same sort of afterwards, and you ended up going back to it.
Yeah.
But sort of the first version of it that you could play at home was on the SNES.
Yeah.
And I remember when that came out, and it was really, really close to the sort of an arcade version. And God, I had a UK SNES, but it came out in America first, I think. And I managed to find a company that sold the American cartridge, but it didn't fit, so you had to get the adapter from Rodney's in Barking, which sold all the game stuff. Got the adapter and then put the American game in, and sitting at home playing Street Fighter was like a dream come true. Absolute dream come true. And it was awesome, wasn't it? Yeah,
No, I was just going to say it's such a good game, and it hasn't aged, I don't think either.
No, and I compare. It's weird. I compare sort of in a weird way. My love of Star Wars is the same as my love of Street Fighter, and it sort of, I don't know. It's one of those things that gets ingrained in you as such. Sort of the whole culture and everything behind it is very, very similar. And even playing it now, I've got 4 and 5 and the different sort of compilation games and that. And just this week, my youngest is really getting into Street Fighter at the moment, and seeing 5 on the screen on like a really high res monitor. Some of the characters, like seeing Blanca and that, and it was green with his muscles and that. You think, wow, look at it. It's so cool. Cool.
He was my favourite character as well, Blanca.
He's an awesome character.
He's brilliant. Yeah. It's an awesome game. Great shout for your number one. And I had a feeling it would be that. So I'm pleased to be correct. Can you guess? You thought mine was going to be FIFA. Can you guess what my number one's going to be then?
Is it Football Manager?
It is Football Manager.
Yay!
Just a bunch of dots, just a spreadsheet, isn't it?
It's like Excel.
I mentioned it earlier. My love and passion for football runs deep. And I didn't get into football till I was about 8. So it wasn't like my dad or anything. My dad's not really into football, so it was purely through just my own kind of interest in it a bit later. But from about 90, I want to say there was so Football Manager started from 2009, I want to say, and still going on. It's a yearly game up until now. Before that, the version was called Championship Manager,
right,
which I had from, I want to say it was about 98. It might have been a couple of years before, but yeah, literally PC game. The scary thing is when I've added up, because I play it through Steam, and it tells you how many hours you've played on a game.
Yeah.
It's depressing. I have played from 2009 to now.
Yeah.
5,519 hours, which is roughly 230 days of my life. Wow. Now, what I will add to that is I don't now. It's always on, so I don't even turn it off. I very rarely turn it off now, and I'll just leave it running and shut the lid and carry on doing what I'm doing. So I don't know whether that's happening as well. So it's still a lot of days though, and I've only been doing that for a few years. So, but I'm just obsessed with trying to beat the game because.
Yeah, but can you beat the game with something like that?
You can by winning.
Oh, instead of beating the computer. I know what you mean.
The good thing about this game is, and certainly more so in the newer ones, the AI in it becomes knowledgeable of how you get your team to play. So if I set them up in a certain way and it works, it might work for a season or however long, but they become smarter to it and then will react to it. So I've got to change my way at times or change how I set my team up or whatever. Obviously, there's the buying and selling, the training of players. Obviously, the current ones that we all know of age and eventually retire at some point. But then there's a regen version, so you won't get John Ronaldo coming through, but you might get something similar. And you'll have all these kind of, regenerated players come through your youth setup that you've got to train up and might have potential and things like that. And there's so many different ways you might want to bring up a team from the lowest division and bring them up to be the best team in the world. I mean, I've never done that, but maybe I should. But for me, the tactical side of it is, I'd talk about football all day, but there's just something about it and wanting to, especially when you're a football fan and you see your team doing rubbish or whatever, and you go, well, I could do a better job than him, and then you want to see what you would do. And I think there's so many different scenarios and sorting your staff out, and when I think about games like The Sims I mentioned earlier, where you had to have things running, or even What was
It reminds me of Theme Park.
I was literally about to say
Yeah.
that. It's a well-oiled machine. You've got to have everything running smoothly so that everything works. And I feel like, not in exactly the same way, but in a weird scenario, you've got to have everything work. Like one of the first things I do when I start a new game on there is sort my backroom staff out, so I know I've got all the areas of training covered and things like that. So what I put on the pitch will have been trained in the right way, rather than having someone who's rubbish at whatever. So it's really weird to compare the two, but there is a similarity in that respect. It's not a game, because I find with games like FIFA, and it's probably why it's not my number one, all the FIFAs will get better each year and will change something that you've got to master. But I find once you master it on FIFA,
Still the same game.
Yeah, you can up the difficulty level, but again, you'll slowly but surely you'll be able to walk through it. Whereas with that, I think there's no guaranteed way. If there was, it'd be a boring game, and that's what I kind of like about it. And it's even developed. I've not done it, but it's even developed so it's online as well. So me and you could, not that I think you would, but me and you could set up our own teams and be in the same league and play against each other. There's things like that. It's moved on, but
well, I do now own. I said to you, I do now own Football Manager as Epic. We're giving it away for nothing.
Yeah.
And I'm always up for a freebie. Whether it'll ever get installed is another question.
Yeah. 230 days. I wonder if you had to put a bet. Last question on this. If you had to put a bet on what game you've spent the most time on, what would it be? I know what mine is, clearly.
Recent game probably would be Rocket League. I would say.
Yeah,
I love Rocket League. But I love it because it's I can dip in and out of it. So if I get a spare 10 minutes, that's 2 games. So it still keeps me fresh at the game. I'll switch on, have a couple of games, switch off again. But that's one that definitely I can lose hours playing it, because it's got that. Takes me a while to get warmed up, so I'll play a few games and be absolutely rubbish, get destroyed, and then sort of I'll that next game be like, oh yeah, that's better, oh brilliant, and then on a roll.
It is a very good game, which we've played online several times.